Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Dave's Faves. And today I want to talk to you about the complete symphonies of Carlos Chávez. Great stuff. Mexico's official great composer. The unofficial great composer was Revueltas, but he died young and didn't really write enough. But he was also quite extraordinary. There have been quite a few fine Mexican composers. There really have. They don't get much play. I mean, they do in Mexico. Chávez was the most famous of them all, and this complete set features Eduardo Mata with the London Symphony Orchestra. Now, I just did a video on the Dorian/Sonoluminous Mata recordings that he did in Venezuela, that six-disc set of remarkable Latin American music. And on there is a Sinfonia India, which of course is on here. But we really don't give Chávez enough attention as a composer. He wrote a lot of music, a lot of very good music. I did a video recently, last year maybe, of his piano concerto, which is an extraordinary piece of music, a difficult piece of music. And I did talk about Chávez somewhat in my series of tough symphonists, because you get the first two symphonies, the symphony, was it the Antigona, yes, and the India, numbers 1 and 2, which are only 10 and 12 minutes each. And they're full of, that fabulous Latin percussion and native music and indigenous music and rhythms and things. They're just powerful and fun and delightful to listen to. And they get played to the extent his music gets played at all. That's what we tend to hear, especially since both of those are essentially overture length, so they don't stress anybody out. But after that, he became a very probing and not easy composer, but I mean in a good way, a challenging composer whose idiom was rooted in the soil, was definitely of a romantic nationalist and then a nationalist modernist character. And it's well worth getting to know. And this Vox series, these 2 discs, are wonderful. They were always fabulous performances, and they're really extraordinary. The other symphonies, well, the third is a normal 4-movement symphony, sort of normal-ish, expanding on what we heard previously. The fourth is known as Sinfonia Romantica. The fifth and sixth are starting to get into a more, what's the word? Just difficult idiom. They're not terribly long. They're 20 to 30 minutes long. They don't tax your patience, but you do have to listen to them a few times. They tend to be kind of bony and acerbic and dissonant in a good way, because they're melodic. They're based on easily recognizable ideas, but they are a challenge. And I think that, Chávez is one of those composers. I just wish that we had an opportunity to hear the full extent of his work. In the other box set, you get his Horsepower, his ballet, which is just a wonderful piece, a suite from that. And there's just so much more music. He wrote that fantastic toccata for percussion solo, for example. There are the experimental pieces. There are the more nationalist pieces. There are the more compositionally challenging pieces. He was very good friends with Aaron Copland. The two of them sort of, hung out. In fact, it was, Copland was hanging out with Chávez in Mexico, where he supposedly encountered the inspiration for El Salón Mexico, which no one has ever found or verified since Copland told the story. So God only knows where it really was or what he actually heard. But this is a wonderful, wonderful legacy. And I can't stress it strongly enough. And it just seems to me a terrible shame that we are so hung up on the German standard repertoire or the limited standard classical repertoire, because there are fantastic composers out there, and I say this over and over again, like Chávez, who deserve our attention. The sound on this, by the way, is wonderful. The engineering is absolutely first class. And when was this recorded? Let me see. Hang on a momentito. 1981. And, it was produced by Harold Lawrence. The engineer was Bob Alger. I mean, these are people who did great work. And they did great work here for Mata on behalf of Chávez. This was a labor of love, a really important pair of discs. And it has, it has had pride of place, thank you, in my collection since it was recorded, since the 80s probably. and I return to it frequently. I think it's absolutely lovely, fantastic, rewarding, challenging, gritty, exciting, powerful music. And it deserves to be heard. And you may not like all of it equally, but it's one of those things, you go back, you take a swing at it, and eventually it hits you. It really does. The guy had a personal voice, a wonderful voice, and I think it deserves vastly much more attention, or vastly more attention than it gets. So I'm doing my thing for the man. Get your Chávez and keep on listening. Thank you so much for joining me, my friends. Take care.